Good morning. Happy Father's Day. My name is Brian Kerr, and I'm so grateful to have this moment to share this reflection with you. I met my father 8 days after I was born. It was a Friday in June in 1963. My mom and dad had driven down to Boynton Beach to bring me back to Gainesville. I had been adopted. I'd always grown up knowing I was adopted. I never had to be sat down and had that discussion. But I do remember I had a friend once who was unbelieving. He had to verify this fact with my parents. Yes, he was adopted. Brian was specially chosen. And if parents were ever given grades on their parenting techniques, this would have gotten an A+. That's how I was raised, knowing I was specially chosen. My favorite passage from the Bible is in Luke chapter 2. This is the story of Jesus going to the temple with his family for Passover when he was 12. Mary and Joseph noticed Jesus wasn't with the caravan after it had been traveling for a day, and they returned back to the temple and found him 3 days later. When his parents saw him, they were astonished, and his mother said to him, "Son, why have you done this to us? Your father and I have been looking for you with great anxiety." Your father and I have been looking for you. Joseph, of course, wasn't Jesus' biological father, but Joseph was his father. And to all of us who have non-biological moms and dads, I find this very comforting. My parents were from New England, and I was raised with New England values. We didn't say "I love you" a lot. We didn't hug much, but love filled my house, and my molding began. I could talk all day and night about what I learned from my dad, but I've been given very rigid time restrictions here, so we're going to move on. An interesting fact about my dad is that he was one of the founding members of what is now the United Church of Gainesville back in the 1960s. We used to go to church until I was about 10, then for some reason we stopped. I can't tell you why, and I never asked. But I would say that from that point on, my upbringing and our home was faithless. But remember, I was raised by a mother and father who loved each other, and they loved my brother Randy and me very much. And that's everything I needed. These New England tendencies received a jolt in 1986 when I met Carrie. She was a cradle Catholic from a warm Italian family who eventually agreed to marry someone who probably wasn't too far away from considering himself an atheist. And just to be very clear, I'm talking about myself. She had me going to church within a couple of weeks, though. There's an expression that says our lives are only a phone call away from being turned upside down. In June of 1997, I got that phone call from my brother Randy here in Gainesville. He explained how my dad had gone into the bathroom that morning and he had taken his life. He was 74 years old. And just like that, I suddenly didn't feel so much like a son, but I was more like a dad. My twin daughters were 6 years old at the time, and they were with me when I got that phone call. I will never forget the hug that I got from them as they watched their daddy cry. I can remember as I was grieving during this difficult period, Carrie gently suggesting, "This might be a good time for me to try to pray." It wasn't time yet. That was still a number of years away. Faith was a gift which I had not yet received. We went on as 3/4 of a Catholic family. We moved back from New Orleans here to Gainesville. My daughters went to St. Patrick's. We went to weekly Mass, and I sat in the pew like a bump on a log. Mass didn't excite me, and that's what I was teaching my kids by my actions. Eventually, as Daniel and Christine went off to college, I'm not sure Mass excited them either. Then somewhere around 2005, I call it the conversion of Brian, occurred. I could give you all sorts of reasons why this was the right time for me. Sister B tells me, God chose this time for me, and that's a far better answer than any of the ones I had come up with. Now, just a bit of warning to any of you who are praying that a family member might go through RCIA. Be prepared. A freshly baptized, communioned, and christened candidate may be more than you bargained for. We come out filled with the Holy Spirit, and we're hungry for more. But Carrie was ready, and she was right by my side. Church wasn't just for Sundays anymore. We tapped into several ministries. We found ourselves becoming closer to Christ than ever before. Much of this faith journey occurred as our girls were going away to college. They would come home for breaks or summers, and they're starting to notice how we are changing. In their words, getting all religious. They couldn't help but notice this change. One Sunday evening while they were away at school in New Hampshire, we were chatting to them by phone. They casually mentioned to us, "We went to Mass tonight." It was the first time in a few years, just like that. They had started going to Mass again. I realized, and I had no idea at the time, I had been keeping my family rooted to the ground in their faith, and they had been ready to soar. And that's the point, dads. If it's important to you, it will be important to your family. Be aware of what you are showing your kids is important to you. I'm going to end on just a little different angle, but I have to share this with you. This is advice that Coach Lou Holtz once gave a ball player who had just become a new father. And he said to him, "The most important thing you can do as a father is make sure your children know that you love their mother." I know today is our day, men. Happy Father's Day. Now go home and love Mom. Thank you.